It's my pleasure to introduce José Alcalá, who's going to present new thoughts, new vision, new visions, new thought, vision in electronic culture at the beginning of the 21st century. Dr. Alcalá, am I saying that right? Okay.
And I doctorate in new media art. It was in 1989, so it's a long time. And I created the museum, the research center, New Media Art Research Center in Cuenca in 1990. So it's a long time. For the center has passed a lot of artists from all around the world, Americans, that's why they knew me in Idaho, and from Japan and all that. And it has been a very exciting experience during the last around 20 years, just, having exchanged ideas and doing work and making projects together. That's why we were, growing up a lot, coming from the really analogical culture to the digital culture. So I divided into parts. The first part is new things, new vision, and the second part is new visions, so new things, new thought. Okay. The first part is something like to see today, prosthetic visions, the technoscience imaginary. We are so influenced by this, by the technoscience imaginary, because as you can see, well, I like very much the quotation from Marcel Proust, who said, the real voyage of discovery of new fountains consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. When I wrote this from his magnum work, opera, I was just 22 or 23 years old. And I was in the cross-boundary of what to do next, how to be modern, an avant-garde artist. And I was saying, can I do something that never had been done before? Finally, I discovered through Marcel Proust that that's impossible. That it's better to have a new eyes, because topics and things and work is related to human beings. And human beings still being the same, mainly from the prehistoric era to now. That's why I think that. But, for example, if we use these new tools for doing the X-ray of a rose, this is a nice idea that comes from a creativity of an artist. Saying, okay, X-ray is just for solid things, so you can cross the soft things, arriving to the hard parts. But what's a rose? Has a rose hard and soft parts? No, it hasn't. So, what should be an X-ray of a rose? And this is a nice idea. This is a piece from the collection of our museum in Cuenca. And also it's interesting to see that this is a dramatic vision, okay? This is in the port of Calais, which, curiously, we have this fabulous work from the Jericho painter, romantic painter, who is the Baths of the Medusa, and it's precisely happening in the port of Calais. And a century and a half later, a track was crossing this port, now from the new tunnel, and was X-rayed by this powerful new tool. And they discovered these poor immigrants who were dying inside the track. So this is a kind of Bath of the Medusa translated into the new vision. Okay, we have new eyes, but finally we have the same problem with the life, with the death, with all these things. And what is interesting for me is that it is becoming a cultural image. Why? Because we suffer in front of this image. If we can suffer in front of this image, it's already a cultural image. We understand the codex. It's so new. It's not seen as we are looking at, our eyes are not looking like that, but our culture is adapted to this new code, and we see that and say, hey, this is terrible. I can cry in front of that. So I got so impressed when I saw that in the cover page of the El País newspaper, and say, hey, something's happened. It's changing a lot. And, this is another interesting image, because this is a laser vision, night light or light laser beam vision. Let me tell you something. We can discuss about that. Don't you think it is more close to a drawing than to a photograph? It's interesting how digital tools, digital imaginary, is becoming a kind of crossing through the past and arriving to some point that is fixed in our culture in the past. So we feel a little bit comfortable by saying we are in front of an artistic image. No, this is a scientific image. I've saw this project from the last 4 or 5 years, and it's changing a lot, year by year, day by day, because a lot of people are choosing and putting new ideas about all the information that's provided, for this. This is the first thing I saw. It's one of the first approaches to this, and was, for me, was very interesting. It was a great discovery, because the only thing was done is 4 or 5 years ago was to take all these cryosections images and put it into a very simple movie program, okay? So, an iMovie or something like that, I think was... and just scanning and putting it all together and say, okay, let's go. Make a trip about that. And the trip surprises so much to scientists, saying, hey, this is a new journey through the body, through the human body. It is incredible. It has so many ideas, fresh and new ideas of how can we make more things. But this is done by our organism inside, how gas relation is producing, and the cells do like that, just to stay alive, just to produce, energy. So when we see it and say, hey, it's incredible how we can pass through that, stage to another, how. And we learn from our own body, just because we have new tools that make us, makes reflection, big, huge, or deep reflection about ideas about nature, for example. But also we can see the Human Genome Project. I want to finish with this image because it's interesting. This is still not being a cultural image, because no one of us can cry or can shout or can be happy or sad in front of it. We don't understand the context of this image. But take time, just a few years. In a few years we will sit in front of that and say, hey doctor, would you mind to take off this small blue? Because I'm afraid, I noticed in my grandfather and my parents, and I noticed in myself, I don't want my son to be like that. So please, would you mind to take away this blue spot? I don't know, maybe something like that will happen, But I'm sure that as it happened with the X-rays, or it happened with the thermal images, we are starting understanding, this new way of these new images of ourselves, which is interesting. But we can go to completely different way. We can go to the opposite side. This is a very nice idea. It comes from the NASA. They put the Voyager, the Voyager special satellite, and they say, okay, the Voyager is going to make a huge travel, for years and years and years, and go as far as possible from our galaxy, finding. Should it be possible to find intelligent, some intelligent out from here? If it happens, which is very remote, it's like a dream. But why don't dream it? It's possible anytime to dream for scientists also. Say, if we find it, how can it be the image that represents ourselves? How can we tell this intelligent out from our galaxy that we are like that we are living in the Earth and we are doing like that? So they decided to put an visual data and sound data inside the Voyager. And this is, unfortunately I have not the sound data because it was uncoded. But this was the visual, the decision of a group of very talented people, very, very talented people, the most in the country, maybe in USA and also Europe, put it together and said, please think how it should be. And it's clearly, they didn't choose for a photographical image, because we are sure they won't have eyes like us. So why don't think about, for example, the ideograms, the Japanese ideograms, or the Eastern ideograms, which is a kind of, the kanjis. It is similar to the kanji, but it's so simple. It's similar to binary language. It's only a dot, black and white. It is only electricity or not electricity. It's 1 or 0, just that. But it's so simple that maybe it's far from icon vision, from visuals, which is, trying to understand that the way we are seeing the world is so specific, it's just for us, just for the million of human beings are here, but what's about the rest, of life forms we have there outside?